The miracle on 35th Street is the story of God's miraculous provision of a permanent location for the Open Door Bible Baptist Church in Astoria, Queens. This is the story of that miracle. In 1986, Pete Montoro graduated from Baptist Bible College in Springfield, Missouri. While attending one of the many chapel services, God placed a burden on his heart for the cities on the East Coast. Later, God would narrow that calling to New York City and finally to Astoria, Queens. It was in this neighborhood that the work of establishing the Open Door Bible Baptist Church began in the fall of 1992. The very first service was held in a rented facility in the Ditmars area, with Brother Clayton preaching, the John Marshall family singing, and a group of singles from the Rochester area evangelizing. This was an exciting start with a total of 15 attending from the local area. However, the very next week, the owners refused to allow the rental to be used, and the church found themselves meeting in the tiny apartment where the growing Montoro family lived on 31st Street. Despite this setback, some stayed, and others joined this humble gathering. Among these were Ken and Rose McAvoy, and later John Rivera, who would remain a member and a trustee for many years. The Yugoslavian Seventh-day Adventist Church agreed to rent their basement auditorium for services beginning in January of 1993. Though any kind of signage was forbidden, thousands of tracts were distributed, and eventually many visitors attended. Inadequate as this facility was, the members grew in the Word and faithfully served alongside their pastor as they continued reaching the lost on the street. It was here that the Open Door Bible Baptist Church was organized with 21 charter members in 1994. Pastor Montoro relentlessly continued the search for a building to purchase. While some places were only a consideration, several became serious possibilities. As each pursuit would seemingly end in failure, the need for a divine miracle became more and more apparent. So it was on a sultry August evening, an earnest prayer meeting was held by Pastor, Brother Clayton, and Brother Marshall on the steps of a synagogue that had recently become available. It was larger than anything that had been previously considered and would sell for far more than any former bids made on any other locations. It would take faith beyond reason. Brother Marshall insisted before he left town that an offer be made to the real estate company carrying the sale. Pastor Montoro, confident that any offer would be rejected, reluctantly took his advice and put in an offer for $700,000. Higher bids had already been received, but the synagogue was interested in selling to a church, and the offer was accepted. Further negotiations resulted in a final selling price of $763,204 with a $100,000 down payment. The rabbis agreed to 3 more payments of $200,000 a year, free of interest. In October of 1996, the church was given permission to hold their 4th anniversary in the synagogue prior to the final sale. It was a joyful event for the fledgling congregation. Many of the young Christians that made up the membership expressed great faith in God's ability to provide, even though they knew little about the whole process. That simple faith often encouraged Pastor as he would face many obstacles in the coming months. Christmas Sunday 1996 was the start of calling the synagogue home. But the challenge to raise the additional funds was far from over. Pastor Montoro was now juggling between the renovations necessary to provide an apartment for the family and traveling to raise additional support for the upcoming payment due in November of 1997. During this time, the church was meeting, growing, and gaining in maturity with all the preaching, teaching, and counseling it took to do so. In November of 1998, the future looked dark indeed as the funds raised totaled a mere $50,000. December came and went, with the probability of foreclosure looming. However, once again, a miracle brought God's answer with a single check of $150,000 from an unlikely source. The growing church procured a loan in 1999 for the final payment, and that too was paid in full in 2004. As Open Door Bible Baptist Church grew from being a baby church in need of tremendous support to an established group of maturing believers, Pastor Montoro continually encouraged the members to consider their giving to missions as a means of showing their gratitude for all the investment they had received. Every dollar received as well as given was accounted for through the years, and in 2011 the church paid back more to missions than the amount received for the purchase of the building. Since that day it has been reached again and again, as the church has invested in God's work the world over. In the immediate area, sacrifices of both time and resources have been made to plant new churches and strengthen failing ones. The call that was answered in 1986 by Pastor Pete Montoro to evangelize the lost and establish churches in this area has never changed. Others have surrendered to that same call and have been sent out to reproduce what was started here. Some have surrendered to work alongside and continue to support the ministry of Open Door Bible Baptist Church. Now, more than ever, we need every member to answer the call to serve God with all their heart and soul until Jesus Christ returns. Let's ask God to continue the story in our own lives. The Miracle on 35th Street.